INEC declares Amadou Fintiri winner of Adamawa State governorship election following dramatic collation process. Independent National Electoral Commission INEC urges Inspector General of Police to prosecute resident electoral commissioner for Adamawa State. Minister of Interior launches 5-year strategic plan to address internal security across the country. On the foreign scene, fighting between Sudan's rival forces continues in Khartoum amidst faltering efforts at a ceasefire. Good evening, this is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Evelyn Ohiola. Adamawa State Governor Amadou Fintiri has won a second term in office after he was declared winner of the governorship election in the state, which was concluded following a supplementary poll on the 15th of April. While announcing the results today, the state returning officer Mohamed Mele said Governor Fintiri of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) polled 430,861 votes to defeat his closest rival, Aisha Binani Dahiru of the All Progressives Congress (APC), who scored 398,788 votes. The Adamawa governorship supplementary election was conducted on Saturday following the declaration of the March 18th poll inconclusive over alleged irregularities. But the collation of election results was thrown into controversy after the resident electoral commissioner for Adamawa State, Hudu Yunusa Ari, declared candidate of the APC, Aisha Binani Dahiru, as the winner when results from the 10 remaining local governments had not been announced. INEC subsequently discontinued the exercise and described this action as null and void, adding that the declaration of a winner is the responsibility of the returning officer.
I, Professor Mohamed Lamin Mele, hereby certify that I am the returning officer for the 2023 Adamawa State Governorship election held on the 15th day of April 2023. The election was contested. The candidates received the following votes. Tahir Hussaini, AA, 643. Usman Mohammed Shiwa, ADC, 3,024. Babangida Umaru, ADP, 2174. Tahiru Ahmed Aishatu, APC, 396,788, 396,788. Shodi Yahya Abga, 892, 892. Baba Jobello, APM, 606, 606. Adam Abdulkadir Isa, APP, 286, 286. Mustafa Umar Madawaki, LP, 2,732, 2732. Muhammad Shibadu Saad Tahir, NNPP, 4,852, 4852. Abba Maina Aliyu, NRM, 1,272, 1272. Umaru Ahmadu Fintiri, DDP, 430,861. 861. Baba Inna Ibrahim, PRP, 1,188, 1188. Ardo Umar, SDP, 6,870, 6870. Maigana Ismaila Musa, YPP, 1,431, 1431. Dado Amrod, ZLP 200 that Umaru Ahmadu Fintiri of PDP, having satisfied the requirement of the law, is hereby declared the winner and
Earlier, the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC said it will write Inspector General of Police Usman Baba to investigate and prosecute the resident electoral commissioner for Adamawa State, Hudu Yunusa Ari. The decision was taken today at the technical meeting attended by national commissioners of INEC in Abuja. The electoral umpire also decided to write Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Bas Mustafa, to brief President Muhammad Buhari about the unwholesome behavior of the REC. The Adamawa governorship supplementary election was conducted on Saturday following the declaration of the March 18th poll inconclusive over alleged irregularities. The collation of election results was suspended till Sunday after results from 10 local government areas were announced. But Mr. Yunusa Ari declared candidate of the All Progressives Congress APC, Aisha Binani Dahiru, as the winner of the election when results from the remaining local governments had yet not been announced. INEC subsequently discontinued the exercise and described his action as null and void, adding that the declaration of a winner is the responsibility of the returning officer. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police Usman Baba has ordered the withdrawal of Commissioner of Police on election duty in Adamawa State, Mohammed Bade, from the state with immediate effect. The IGP also ordered that the Commissioner of Police in charge of Gombe State, Etim Ekwa, should immediately proceed to Adamawa State for election security. Force Public Relations Officer Muyiwa Adejobi, while addressing journalists in Abuja, said the IGP is committed to a free and fair process. In the meantime, acting national chairman of the People's Democratic Party PDP, Umaru Damagum, has asked the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC to hand over the returning officer for Saturday's supplementary governorship poll in Adamawa State, Hudu Yunusa Ari, to the police for prosecution. At a news conference today, PDP national chairman described Mr. Yunusa Ari's actions as a civilian coup and in contradiction of the Constitution. The PDP asked that the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, should sanction the Adamawa Police Commissioner for providing him cover. We apologize for the poor audio quality, but moving on and still staying with the election in Adamawa, a federal high court in Abuja has refused to hear an ex parte application by candidate of the All Progressives Congress APC, Aisha Binani Dahiru, seeking to restrain the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC from invalidating her declaration as winner of the Adamawa State governorship election. At the court session today, Justice Iyang Eko asked Binani's lawyer, Mohammed Sharif, to first address the issues of jurisdiction before hearing the substantive motion. The court ordered Binani to file her address and whether the court has jurisdiction to hear the application within 2 days. Counsel to Governor Ahmadu Fintiri of Adamawa, Afiz Matomi, who was in court, was not allowed to make submissions since the APC candidate brought the action through an ex parte application. Justice Eko thereafter adjourned the suit till April 26th. Elsewhere, a federal high court in Abuja has barred the People's Democratic Party PDP from suspending or expelling Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State and state executive members of the PDP in the state over alleged anti-party activities. In his judgment, Justice Iyang Eko held that the fears of Governor Wike, Rivers State Governor-elect Siminayi Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu, as well as other members of the PDP, were well-founded, and that suspending or expelling them will amount to the breach of their rights to freedom of association. The judge thereafter stated that it is in the power of the court to grant redress to persons who have well-established acts that would amount to infringement of their rights. The judge said members of the political parties cannot be suspended arbitrarily without compliance with the political parties' guidelines. Governor Wike and 4 other PDP governors, known as the G5, had openly campaigned against PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar in the February 25th poll. A federal high court in Abuja has nullified the removal of Ifeanyi Ararume as a non-executive chairman of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Justice Iyan Eko, in his ruling today, awarded 5 billion naira damages in favor of the former senator representing Imo North. President Muhammadu Buhari had appointed Senator Ararume as board chairman of the corporation in September 2021, but he was later sacked and replaced with Margaret Chuba Okadibo in January 2022. In the suit, Senator Ararume argued that the sack was wrongful and amounted to disruption and interruption of the term of his office. In the judgment, the court ordered that he should be reinstated as non-executive chairman of the NNPC with all rights and privileges due to him. The court also set aside all decisions made by the board after the removal of Senator Ararume since January 2022 till date. In other news, in an effort to stem the tide of malaria disease in Nigeria, the federal government yesterday granted provisional approval for the R21 malaria vaccine developed by scientists at Oxford University. Director General of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, Mojisola Adeyeye, said the vaccine is indicated for the prevention of clinical malaria in children from 5 months to 36 months of age. Toby Sanusi has more on this.
The approval of the R21 malaria vaccine by the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, will resuscitate hopes among millions of Nigerian children who battle the life-threatening disease. In a country that had the highest number of global malaria index in 2021 and the highest number of deaths in 2022, according to the World Malaria Report, the vaccine approval means mortality rates among children will be reduced. This is as the Director General of NAFDAC, Mojisola Adeyeye, disclosed that the vaccine is indicated for prevention of malaria in children between 5 months to 36 months.
A malaria vaccine that has high efficacy. The efficacy of this vaccine is 75%. Therefore, it is good. And we just didn't come to that conclusion just like that. The approval process went through very rigorous dynamics, so to say. We had an external review committee from 4 different universities. These are known researchers in the area of malaria science, full professors, well published, and this review of theirs was done independently from that of NAFDAC. We have a standing NAFDAC vaccine committee. But because this vaccine is a new molecule, it is new, it has not been approved by any country aside from Ghana, we took our time to make sure that the review is very rigorous. Professor
Adeyeye added that Nigeria expects to get at least 100,000 doses of the vaccine before the arrangements with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Reacting to this, a lecturer at the Osun State University, Professor Monsuru Adeleke, while speaking on Western Spring Television Morning Spring program, maintains that with the approval, the prevalence of malaria in Nigeria will gradually phase out.
NAFDAC has all the enabling law to regulate the drugs and the food being brought into the country. Some of the studies that have been done around this R21 vaccine have shown that it can give, it passes what we call threshold. The threshold of efficacy is around 75 according to the WHO guideline, and it was more than that threshold. And what we are saying is that in Nigeria, most importantly, that is still accounting for the highest burden of the infection. Can we bring up something to protect the children, at least more than 50%, and this infection can be we phase out. So it's a welcome development.
The R21 vaccine, which has been described as a world changer by scientists, was first approved by the World Health Organization in Ghana on April 14th, making Nigeria the second country to approve the new malaria vaccine developed at the University of Oxford. The World Health Organization had earlier in 2021 recommended the use of the R21 vaccine, which is the world's first malaria vaccine.
And I longed for the day that we would have an effective vaccine against this ancient and terrible disease. And today is that day, an historic day.
According to the World Health Organization, over 600,000 people die of the mosquito-borne disease each year, accumulating for the death of a child per minute every day. Out of these statistics, the African region accounts for half of all malaria deaths worldwide, and here in Nigeria, 97% of the population are at risk of the disease. Hopefully, this narrative will change following the approval of the vaccine in Nigeria. Toby Sanusi, Western Spring Television News.
To security, a former president of the Nigeria Bar Association, Okewale, has been abducted by gunmen. Mr. Wale was kidnapped yesterday after his convoy was attacked along the east-west road in Obiakpo, local government area of Rivers State. Confirming the incident, Rivers Police spokesperson Grace Iringekoko said the tactical squad has been mandated to secure the release of the former NBA president. In a statement today, NBA President Yakubu Mekiau appealed to the abductors to release Mr. Wale to his family. He said Mr. Wale, who was the 26th president of the NBA, served the nation in varying capacities, contributing immensely to the growth of legal practice. Mr. Wale was previously kidnapped on October 11th, 2014 in Port Harcourt, Rivers State capital, but regained his freedom after 13 days in captivity. Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola has launched a 5-year strategic plan to address internal security across the country. In his remarks at the launching of the strategic plan in Abuja, Mr. Aregbesola noted that the plan would capitalize on the ministry's strengths and position to significantly impact the critical issues bordering Nigeria's internal security. According to him, the Ministry of Interior is integral to national security and prosperity, noting that these are done through the 4 services of Nigeria Immigration Service, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Nigeria Correctional Service, and the Federal Fire Service. He added that available records and information have shown that the Ministry of Interior has in the past operated without a strategic plan. In Osun State, Governor Ademola Adeleke has summoned an emergency meeting of the State Security Council to review ongoing operations designed to checkmate criminal activities in the state. Ahead of the meeting slated for this week, the governor ordered regular patrols by a combined team of security personnel to stem recent upsurge in robberies and kidnappings and reinforce the successes currently being recorded by the security agencies. In a statement by spokesperson Olawale Rashid, Governor Adeleke urged all security agencies to intensify joint operations. He directed that criminal infiltrators into the state and their sponsors must be fished out as recent upsurge appears to be unusual. Governor Adeleke, who commiserated with victims of insecurity and their families, reassured the state of his administration's commitment to the security of lives and properties, adding that since 2 weeks ago, top officials have been detailed to interface with security agencies on anti-crime operations. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come. Fighting between Sudan's rival forces continues in Khartoum amidst faltering efforts at a ceasefire. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
history of guns is traced to China. The Chinese had developed a technology civilization that produced devices identified as guns at about 1000 AD. By the end of the 13th century, the devices had become true guns and described as metal-barreled firearms that fired single projectiles which occluded the barrel. When did gun become an instrument of war? The first battles to be decided by firearms were between French and Spanish soldiers. The early 16th century warfare included Magnano in 1515, Bicocca in 1522, and Pavia in 1525. The wars were fought in Italy. The gun is a weapon of destruction and death, but humanity sees it as a potent instrument of family destruction. People with guns feel safer even if they don't display it. Western Spring Television identifies history of guns as a watershed event in history. Samuel Ladoke Akintola was a frontal figure in the historical moves that birthed an independent Nigeria from colonial Britain. As a freedom activist, he deployed his wits, energy, intellect, and oratory skills to prepare the grounds for constitutional talks that eventually culminated in the country's independence in 1960. The 13th Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò of Yoruba land cut his teeth as a politician when he became a foundation member of Action Group, the dominant political party in the Western region, and was elected the party's parliamentary leader of opposition at the Federal House of Representatives. The crisis in the Action Group, which pitched Samuel Ladoke Akintola against his leader, was not only a sore point in his colorful political life, but a reversal of gains which characterized the exemplary leadership of Awolowo Akintola premiership. 23 years after his death, Oyo State University of Technology Ogbomosho was renamed Samuel Ladoke Akintola University of Technology to keep his memory alive. Western Spring Television identifies Samuel Ladoke Akintola as a major character in history. The Korean War of 1950 to 1953 pitched North and South Korea against each other in response to intrigues by nations beyond their border with different interests from those canvassed by the two brother nations. The Korean War had all the nuances of an external conflict induced by powers that were interested in subjugating North and South Korea. Japan had leveraged on its military power to annex Korea in 1900 and imposed a military union that did not sit well with the citizens. Japan not only lost its war of conquest against Korea, all its powers were obliterated by the effect of the World War II. The end of World War II got Korea divided into two nations along 38 parallel lines by the instrumentality of the United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. The Korean War lapsed into a Cold War when it stopped the prying eyes of external forces into the internal affairs of a nation now divided along its north and southern territories. Western Spring Television identifies the Korean War as a major event in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. INEC declares Amadou Fintiri winner of Adamawa State governorship election following dramatic collation process. Independent National Electoral Commission INEC urges Inspector General of Police to prosecute resident Electoral Commissioner for Adamawa State. Minister of Interior launches 5-year strategic plan to address internal security across the country. And the foreign scene fighting between Sudan's rival forces continues in Khartoum amidst faltering efforts at a ceasefire. The National Bureau of Statistics says women representation continues to decline across all tiers of government in Nigeria. The Bureau, in a report released today, said female participation in politics and decision-making remains low. The NBC said women have never been appointed as secretary to the government of the Federation, despite constituting almost half of the country's population. The report said since independence and the return to democracy in 1999, women have never been elected as president or vice president. In 2016 and 2017, a total of 6 women and 73 men occupied principal positions in the Senate, while from 2007 to 2011, women recorded 7.2% representation in the National Assembly, which is the highest figure so far. In 2019, women had 6.2% representation in the National Assembly, while men occupied 93.8% of the positions. The NBS said in 2016 and 2017, women made up 31.87% and 31.98% of national judicial offices, but the figure declined to 28.86% in 2018. According to the Holy Quran, while parents merit consideration, love, compassion, and mercy, children deserve maintenance, care, love, and education. This was stated by an Islamic scholar, Malam Ishaq Muhammad Jamiu, who was the guest lecturer at the Ramadan lecture organized by the Muslim community of the Nigeria Police Force Zone 11 Police Command Headquarters, Oshogbo today. Olayinka Ale completes the story.
The family is a part of the Islamic social order. It establishes an ideological society with a high level of moral awareness, strong commitment, and purposive orientation of all human behavior as part of an effort to build a morally upright home where parents perform their civic and religious responsibilities and in turn raise children to be good ambassadors of the family. The entire Muslim community of the Nigeria Police Force Zone 11 Police Command Headquarters, Oshogbo today held a Ramadan lecture with the theme Marriage Discord. The guest lecturer Malam Ishaq Muhammad Jamiu, an Islamic scholar, stressed that the family is so important and sacred that should anything affect the family, the society will face the consequences. Malam Jamiu equally admonished parents to be passionate about the upbringing of their children so that they can be addressed when old age sets in.
The family unit is so important that if anything could happen to it, then the society is gone. And I told them that the reflection of what we have in the society today is what the family is bringing up. Many of us who are supposed to be pillars of our houses have neglected our duties. And whether we like it or not, we cannot eat our cake and have it. It is important we go back to the drawing board and ensure that what is supposed to do in the right way is done in the right way.
The duo of Moriliat Adeniran and Mutiu Alao Bolaji, who were among the guests, stated that the lecture was impactful and they hope parents would imbibe discipline in their children so that normalcy can be restored in the society.
I learned a very lot of things inside, and I'm very pleased with the person, our guest lecturers, and all those that share the occasion. I wish this program continue like this. Or some of our mothers need orientation. Something like this is supposed to be coming up, either in the mosque, in the madrasat, in the societies, so that we will be lecturing them, continue lecturing them on what are not to do to bring up their children.
The lecture was very, very interesting, and a lot of lessons were learnt. The lecture actually talks about the marital issues as it's disturbing the society as a whole.
One of the organizers of the Ramadan lecture, ASP Wasiu Bankole, said the aim of our being on marital discord during the Ramadan lecture was because society has been affected in a negative way, no thanks to poor family upbringing. He said for the country to be a better place, the home front has to be balanced.
Our aim of organizing this program, the Ramadan lecture, firstly is because we are seeing the way things are going in our society nowadays. And when we look at it, we see that most of our homes, they are not in order. And the Nigeria we are talking about that has to do with the society menace. Most of those things generated from the houses, from our different homes. So, and it is on this basis that we organize the program. So, because we believe that for us to make Nigeria a better place, actually we need to start from our different homes.
Ramadan is a period of fasting and spiritual growth and has been regarded as the holy month for all Muslim faithful, where they aim to grow spiritually and become closer to Allah and their loved ones. Olainka Ali, Western Spring Television News.
The Amotekun Corps in Osun State says it has secured the release of a man kidnapped from a Fulani settlement at Agoigbira in Ilarogun area of the state. In the statement today, Amotekun commander in the state, retired Brigadier General Bashir Adewimbi, said the victim, Muhammad Jibril, was released when the local security outfit closed in on the abductors. According to him, the abductors bolted and left behind the victim late yesterday when they sighted some operatives of Amotekun. Brigadier General Adewimbi said the victim had been reunited with his family without paying ransom and added that investigation was continuing to arrest the kidnappers. Muhammad was abducted from the Fulani settlement on Wednesday, April 12th at about 1:40 a.m., where one Hassan Jibril was killed. On the foreign scene, fighting between Sudan's rival forces have continued in Khartoum for a fourth day amidst faltering efforts to get the army and the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group to agree on a ceasefire. According to reports, the RSF has been looting in some residential areas of the capital. Heavy bombardment and black smoke can be seen around the airport, which is in the center of Khartoum and right next to the military headquarters, as tanks are reported on some streets. According to the United Nations, around 185 people have been killed and more than 1,800 injured since the fighting erupted on Saturday.
A U.S. diplomatic convoy came under fire in Sudan in an apparent attack by fighters linked to the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Tuesday, calling the incident reckless and irresponsible.
We have deep concerns, of course, about the overall security environment as it affects civilians, as it affects diplomats, as it affects aid workers. The World Food Program had to suspend its operations. 3 of its people were killed. That potentially has terrible consequences for the Sudanese people who are in desperate need of the assistance provided by the World Food Program. That only underscores the imperative of getting a ceasefire and putting Sudan back on the track that it was on, which was talks and negotiations toward the restoration of a civilian-led government.
Blinken, speaking in Japan, said the diplomatic convoy that came under fire on Monday was flying U.S. flags and all in the convoy was safe. The shooting prompted a direct warning from Blinken, who separately telephoned RSF leader General Muhammad Hamdan Dagalo and Sudan's Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan to tell them that any danger posed to American diplomats was unacceptable. The power struggle has derailed a shift to civilian rule and raised fears of a wider conflict. Fighting between Sudan's army and the paramilitary RSF that erupted on Saturday has killed at least 185 people and injured more than 1,800, UN envoy Volker Perthes said. Perthes, the UN envoy to Sudan, said on Monday the two sides showed no signs of willingness to negotiate. He said the rivals had agreed to a 3-hour humanitarian truce, but fighting continued despite the promises of calm.
More than 180 fatalities, people killed, more than 1,800 injured, including 3 colleagues from the World Food Program who have been killed while trying to serve the Sudanese people in North Darfur.
The violence has cut power and water in Khartoum, and smoke has been hanging over the city amid a clamor of airstrikes, artillery fire, and shooting. The clashes in Khartoum and its adjoining sister cities of Omdurman and Bari are the worst in decades and risk steering Sudan between 2 military factions that had shared power during a rocky political transition. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, on Sunday, the Intergovernmental Authority for Development, IGAD, called an extraordinary summit of the heads of state and government in East Africa. The group demanded an immediate end to fighting in Sudan and called on both parties to create a safe corridor for humanitarian aid. Kenya's President William Ruto, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir, and Djibouti's President Ismail Omar Guelleh will arrive in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, at the earliest possible time, the Kenyan government said.
I'm very happy that this afternoon my elder brothers, the heads of state from the other countries, have convened so that we can take charge of not just the organization, but also take charge of the situation in our region.
Temitope Ajijolaoluwa Ola, Western Spring Television News.
A Russian court has rejected the appeal of United States journalist Evan Gershkovich against his pretrial detention. He appeared in court in Moscow today, the first time he had been seen in public for weeks. He was arrested in the city of Yekaterinburg while working for the Wall Street Journal newspaper and charged with spying. Along with his lawyer, U.S. Ambassador to Moscow, Lynn Tracy, was also present in the courtroom. Speaking outside the court after the hearing, Ms. Tracy said she was given access to Mr. Gershkovich for the first time yesterday, and that he was in good health and remained strong despite the circumstances. More than 40 countries led by the U.S. released a joint statement at the United Nations yesterday, calling for Mr. Gershkovich's release and condemning Moscow for intimidating the media.
From the steps of the Moscow City Court, where we observed today's hearing on Evan Gershkovich's case, I can only say how troubling it was to see Evan, an innocent journalist, held in these circumstances. I was able to meet Evan yesterday at Lefordova prison. It was the first time we were granted consular access since his wrongful detention more than 2 weeks ago. I can report that he is in good health and remains strong despite his circumstances. We will continue to provide all appropriate support to Evan and his family, and we expect Russian authorities to provide continued consular access to Evan.
In the meantime, Scottish National Party Treasurer Colin Beattie has been arrested by police investigating the party's finances. Mr. Beattie, aged 71, has been taken into custody and has been questioned by Scotland police detectives. A spokesman for the force said the arrest was made in connection with the continuing investigation into the funding and finances of the SNP. It comes 2 weeks after former SNP Chief Executive Peter Murrell, husband to former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, was also arrested. Meanwhile, SNP First Minister Hamza Yousaf, when quizzed on whether Mr. Beattie would be suspended from the party, said he is still innocent until proven otherwise.
Well, look, I can't comment on a live police investigation. It's clearly a very serious matter indeed.
Do you think he should from the party? Have you suspended him from the party or the group?
I've said already that people are innocent until proven guilty. That's the premise.
Will you take him off the Public Audit Committee in the meantime?
Look, again, I'll consider that. I'll have to speak to Colin Beattie. My understanding is he's still in the police station being questioned. Clearly, when he's off that, I'll need to have a word with Colin, not about the live police investigation. We can't speak about the detail of that. But clearly, there are pertinent issues around his role, Public Audit Committee, and his role, of course, as the National Treasurer.
Are you surprised that he's been arrested?
Well, yes, of course I'm surprised when one of my colleagues has been arrested, but it's a very serious matter indeed.
In Asia, a huge landslide in northwestern Pakistan has killed at least 3 people, wounded several others, and buried nearly 24 vehicles. According to officials, the landslide occurred near Tokam, a key border crossing between Pakistan and Afghanistan in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Local police officer Salim Kalachi disclosed that evacuation process will take some time to complete, adding that there are around 20 to 25 vehicles buried under the landslide. A spokesman for the Rescue 1122 service in the province says the landslide took place before dawn after rain and thunderstorms were reported in the area. Still ahead, Aviation union workers end two-day warning strike earlier in Back-to-Pan in protest of poor working conditions. We have more on these and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
Olayinka Herbert Macaulay, politician, nationalist and journalist, was the first Nigerian to qualify as a civil engineer, surveyor and architect. Born on November 14, 1864, Herbert Macaulay was the founder of Nigeria's National Democratic Party, the first political party in pre-independent Nigeria. Scholars of Nigeria's political history describe Herbert Macaulay as the intellectual bulldog of 19th century Nigerian nationalist movement, in the deference to his qualities as founder and leader of two foremost political parties, Nigeria National Democratic Party (NNDP) and National Council of Nigerian Citizens (NCNC). His matchless versatility in party organization and control kept the British colonialists on their toes in the entire span of his active life. After his death on 7th May 1946, Herbert Macaulay remains a hero of his country, which recognized his anti-colonial struggles. Today, Nigeria's 10 naira coin bears his oval face and trademark moustache. Western Spring Television identifies Herbert Macaulay as a major character in history. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist who gave his all for the elimination of what has been described as the world's most vicious rule of the unjust and man's inhumanity against man. He was born July 18, 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. Educated and trained as a successful legal practitioner, he took up the gauntlet of a human activist against segregation by the minority white suprematists in South Africa. At the climax of his trial for treason, orchestrated by the minority South African government, the great crusader for democratic equality was prepared to pay the supreme sacrifice to establish majority rule in his native land. He told white jurists that if achieving freedom for his people was worth his life, he was prepared to die. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in Robben Island, described as the most notorious prison in the world. It was from this same prison that he came out as a free man to assume office as South Africa's first black president in 1994. Western Spring Television identifies Nelson Mandela as a watershed character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back now to business. Aviation union workers today ended their two-day warning strike which commenced yesterday in protest of poor working conditions. While briefing journalists today, General Secretary of the Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Francis Akinjole, apologized to the public for the inconveniences experienced. Speaking on behalf of the unions, he said after this warning strike, the unions would re-strategize if the federal government does not come up with a considerable solution. The angry workers had yesterday blocked access roads to the airport in Lagos, making entry into the international and domestic airports cumbersome. The unions had warned the federal government that if their conditions were not met after the warning strike, they would withdraw their services indefinitely. Meanwhile, the federal government had appealed to aviation workers to cancel the ongoing strike action, promising that their demands will soon be met.
Ofan, Nama, that are in Lagos. Would we have regional offices in Lagos? The bulk of the economic activity of Nigeria is in Lagos. Lagos Airport is the hub in Nigeria. And they say they want to demolish it in less than how many weeks? The AIB that was demolished over a year ago, what have they used it for? You see, we have a tyranny. We have a tyranny of the people authority. Very, very few of them. That is what they are enjoying, and that is why they refuse to create, to inaugurate board of directors for our state. We are going to continue with this after this one strike. If they fail to hit to our demands, we don't mind continuing with it until even after the swearing in of the new administration.
The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry says the federal government's planned petrol subsidy removal remains one of the best economic decisions that will reduce Nigeria's debts and tackle widespread corruption in the oil sector. LCCI President Michael Olawale Cole said this during the Chamber's second quarter State of the Economic Conference in Lagos. Nigeria recently secured an $800 million relief package from the World Bank to minimize the effect of subsidy removal on the most vulnerable in the society. Dr. Olawale Cole urged the government to begin to roll out several cushioning measures ahead of the subsidy removal in the second half of the year to mitigate any likely disruptions to the economy. The LCCI president frowned at borrowing to fund subsidies or support on economic ventures, saying the government's fixation on debt accumulation was unhealthy. According to Dr. Olawale Cole, the government must prioritize exploring other avenues, including opening equity opportunities, offloading or selling of its real estate holdings, and tackling all theft to create room for fiscal manipulation. In the United Kingdom, unemployment edged higher in the 3 months to the end of February as the economy continues to be impacted by high inflation. In a statement, the Office for National Statistics said the rate increased to 3.8% from 3.7% in the 3 months to the end of January. The Statistics Office said the increase was driven by people unemployed for up to 6 months. Director of Economic Statistics Darren Morgan said the number of days lost to strikes picked up again in February. Public and private sector workers have been striking since last year to demand increases to pay, whose value has been eroded by elevated inflation. In the meantime, China's economy grew much better than expected in the first 3 months of the year as the country reopened after the end of zero-COVID measures. After years of travel restrictions and quarantines, China's people in recent months have finally returned to restaurants and started to move around more freely, giving much-needed stimulus to services. According to data published by the National Bureau of Statistics, the official growth figure for January to March was 4.5%. The report said in the first 3 months of the year, China had faced a grave and complex international environment, as well as arduous tasks to advance reform, development, and ensure stability at home, but that economic stability was Beijing's top priority. Welcome to sports. Super Eagles winger Chidera Juke is back in training at Bundesliga outfit Hertha Berlin. The 25-year-old returned to training with his teammate after spending 4 months in sidelines. Hertha Berlin revealed the good news on their official Twitter handle. Ajuke moved to Hertha Berlin from Russian Premier League club CSKA Moscow on a season-long loan deal last summer. He has provided 3 assists in 15 league appearances. Bayern Munich manager Thomas Tuchel has claimed the club squandered the chance to use Sadio Mane's punch on Leroy Sané after last week's defeat to Manchester City as positive energy. The former Liverpool forward was suspended for the weekend's clash with Hoffenheim after hitting his teammate in the face, leaving him with a busted lip following the 3-0 Champions League quarter-final first-leg defeat. City manager Pep Guardiola later claimed that Tuchel and his Bayern Munich players could use it as a positive energy moving forward, saying teams need to conflict to make them better. While agreeing during a news conference today ahead of the second leg against City, Tuchel said it is not necessarily a bad thing for players to get angry, but added that last weekend's 1-1 draw with Hoffenheim meant they had missed the opportunity to harness the incident in a positive manner.
The other day, Pep Guardiola said that the fist from Sadio Mane on Leroy Sané could actually galvanise your team because it would give you some sort of, come on, now we're going to show and galvanise. Is this just sort of average manager speak from Pep, or is there something in that? Can you use that?
I hope we used it against. I hoped we used it again in the last match against Hoffenheim, which we obviously didn't. So now the case is already closed. Subject already died. So I don't think that this will give us a huge boost. I know what he means. That like this kind of energy in a dressing room, it shows also the determination and shows like that it's alive. That the players are not happy. That the players like are angry with themselves, with each other, like. Which can be used as which is also a kind of a form of energy. It was to a certain extent that we don't like. It was too much, but still I see the point that Pep mentioned. We thought actually that we turned it around. We thought we turned around the momentum to use it as positive energy in our last match. It did not happen, I have to say. So I don't think it will have a major impact now.
To tennis, world number 1 Novak Djokovic has said his right elbow is not in an ideal condition before the Skripska Open in Bosnia-Herzegovina. The 35-year-old had surgery on the joint in 2018 and was dropping during a shock defeat by Lorenzo Musetti at the Monte Carlo Masters last week. The Skripska Open is a 22-time Grand Slam winners final tournament before the French Open starts on 28th of May, and he hopes his right elbow will be fully ready for the first match. Djokovic will begin his quest for an unprecedented 23rd Grand Slam title at the French Open against French 18-year-old Luca Van Aste. And that's all we have for you at this hour. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. Adamawa State Governor Amadou Fintiri has won a second term in office after he was declared winner of the governorship election in the state, which was concluded following a supplementary poll on the 15th of April. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) said it will write Inspector General of Police Usman Baba to investigate and prosecute the resident Electoral Commissioner for Adamawa State, Hudu Yunusa Ari. Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola has launched a 5-year strategic plan to address internal security across the country. On the foreign scene, fighting between Sudan's rival forces have continued in Khartoum for a 4th day amidst faltering efforts to get the army and the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group to agree a ceasefire. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Evelyn Ohiole. Have for yourself a beautiful night rest.
It was a Euro-American trade in slaves by which 12.5 million Africans were captured from their indigenous homelands and transported via the Atlantic